I wanted to start by asking you, in a lot of the materials that you may have seen for the film, they talk about the fact that it was the most seen documentary in Brazil. And when I read that originally, to me, it just sounded like kind of a marketing ploy. Oh, like, people love this movie in Brazil, you should see it. And then I realized that it was more meaningful than that, because Brazil doesn't have I don't think they have a real history of documentary film, and they certainly don't have a history of kind of inward-looking documentary. Is that right?
Well, there is a strong history of documentary films, but not inward-looking. That for sure is true. There's one film that marked, because there's this sense that of talking about the other, and the first film that marked the history of Brazilian documentary for talking about the self was Santiago, by the brother of Walter Salles, called João Moreira Salles. He did it about his butler, and it's a very interesting film that talks about power relationships.
What year was that?
That was in 2005, I think, or 6.
So that's not a long time ago. It's not a long history of inward-looking films. One of the things that it says, I had to write this down because I wanted to make sure that I got it right, was that you say that Brazil has a habit of burning letters and diaries, and I wanted to understand better what that meant exactly, and how that applies to the idea of the documentaries that are not so inward-looking.
Yes, this I learned from James Green, who is a professor of Brazilian history at Brown University, and basically him in his research had extreme difficulty in finding the material he needed because all the letters had been burned. And it makes sense because in Brazil, we don't have heroes. There's not a sense of celebrating our history like in the United States there is. There is a sense of always feeling quite cynical about our history. I think because independence was proclaimed by the Portuguese, and the slavery was abolished by the princess, and so there weren't movements that we're quite proud about, you know?
Are you all thinking this sounds really healthy? Maybe we should adopt a little of this? That's all I'm hearing.
There's a part of it that I think is healthy, but there's another part that if we don't have what to celebrate, we don't have what to remember as well, you know? And now there's been a movement that has encountered a lot of resistance for memory and reconciliation in opening the archives of the military dictatorship. And it's slowly starting to happen. But the military are still resisting, and they're still very powerful. So.
Well, it's interesting because of all of the dictatorships that happened in South and Central America, this is one that is not in our popular consciousness. I think maybe because the dictators, there wasn't one good dictator that stood out that we can vilify. Yeah. So I don't know if, was everyone here aware of the fact that there was this period of dictatorship in Brazil? I'm seeing some people saying no. I mean, I was aware of it somewhat because I have South American people in my family, but I don't know if you know that I think there's a lot of Americans that was a bit of a, yeah, okay, interesting.